Hopefully you can hear me. My name is Joseph, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us today on this Course 5 CX Simulation webinar. We're delighted that you've chosen to be with us for the next 40 odd minutes. I know everybody's busy with their schedules and demanding clients, but I'm sure it'll make it worth your while. My name is Joseph Sursok. I manage the European operations for Course 5, helping clients manage and deploy various components of their digital transformation programs. So delighted to be your host today. As expected, some hygiene considerations before we get stuck in. We've chosen a web conference facility today where you can submit your questions, and you can do that throughout the next half hour or so. We may pick them up during the webinar. More likely, we tend to sort of collate them towards the end, but please feel free to present your questions. The more interactive, the better. And as always, we will share a copy of the material and the recording to all who register with us today. This is the second or third webinar now we're doing on this topic. We run several webinars throughout the year, and you'll find some of the previous ones on our website accordingly. So to get us going on today, I just want to focus on the agenda. We would like to start with the big one, the elephant in the room. Everybody's talking about digital transformation. That's because everybody's doing digital transformation, spending a lot of money in this area, expecting some great benefits. And so we operate in that space quite heavily, and we would like to touch upon that and the big battleground that is customer experience. We would like to also talk about some of our experiences. The panelists will share specific cases, specific client scenarios where some of these things have come to bear in the last few years and what we are doing more currently. And then we'll move on to the simulators that the advanced analytics team here at Course 5 has been building for the last few years, and we'll give you specific examples. So we'll actually run through a demo, so you don't leave empty-handed. You actually see how this thing works, and you can ask all the questions accordingly. So moving on, I am joined by a couple of colleagues today. One is our head of consultancy, Sushant Ajmani, who will share with us perspectives and experiences around CX initiatives. He has a global remit, so and he's quite a knowledgeable individual, so expect some fireworks there in terms of customer experiences. Sushant, pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you.
And also on the panelist list today, we're delighted to be joined by Zabi, who heads our advanced analytics practice at Course 5, always working on exciting and leading programs. It's a very leading edge team that he has. Welcome on board, Zabi.
Thanks, Joseph. Thanks for the invite.
Excellent. Okay, so moving on, a few words about Course 5. As I mentioned earlier, we specialize in digital transformations and programs related in that regard. And what we bring to the table is analytics, insights, and artificial intelligence. We've been doing this for a few years. We've been working with many medium and large enterprises, both in the US, Europe, and also in the Asian subcontinent. The capabilities we bring to market would vary by organization and by program, but fundamentally it is around their customers, it's around some of the intelligence and analytics they require across the business, and it's around their competition. So we're a global company. We have been operating with consumer-led businesses and business-to-business organizations. More recently, I have personally been involved with many CPG companies, and their big focus is B2B2C, so more excitement. And along the way, we've won a few awards. You can find all of that on our website. Please feel free to download some of the good materials that we've been building to give you an insight of the sort of things we get involved with. So to kick us off, as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to bring Sushant in and maybe ask you to expand a bit about what we are hearing, seeing, and experiencing when it comes to digital transformation specifically on this overall topic.
Sure, Joseph. Hey guys, so there are multiple trends that we have been experiencing since last couple of years. And one of the bigger things that we have encountered in the last 2 years is that there's a strong proliferation of data which is happening in the industry, okay? The consumer touch points are increasing. We are seeing more and more technology investments are happening within the digital transformation space. For some companies, digital transformation is all about automating the entire workflow. For some organizations, digital transformation is all about bringing in new technologies, optimizing the current processes. While for some organizations, we are seeing addition of new skills in terms of creating a dedicated role for chief customer experience officers or the chief digital officer. So overall, we are seeing a significant trend shift happening at every large enterprise we are working.
So with that in mind, and we are focusing on customer experience, what would be some good takeaways when organizations are looking at both of these? Because as you said earlier, it tends to be related or to be overlapping in many of the large corporates we deal with.
The first fundamental shift which is happening and which is absolutely required when you are running any kind of a large digital transformation program is the collaboration. Traditionally, we have been operating as the multi-channel organizations. In the last 2-3 years, most of the large enterprises in the CPG, FMCG, telecom, retail sector realized that we got to see our organization from outside to inwards. We need to break the barriers between the different departments and start gaining more and more efficiencies in terms of interacting with our customers, as well as streamlining our processes. Because at the end of the day, if you want to improve the customer experience, you want to give them that seamless experience, you need to break those organizational barriers. And number 2 is the standardization. You need to bring standardization in your processes. You need to bring standardization in your messaging across different touch points. And most importantly, you need to leverage that cross-functional data coming from different sources.
So as we get into a bit more detail, we wanted to bring to bear some of the outside-in observations that we are seeing. And some of the things that I'm sure some of you have come across is some of the statistics that some of these large consultancy companies are sharing with us. We feel they're in the right ballpark. We are seeing the same or similar numbers from our customer base in various geographies. And there are direct correlations between CX investments and then gains either on the bottom line or in a referral through loyalty programs or in the top line. So I think we're in the right place. We collectively, yourselves and us, for being interested in this topic. The investments seem to bear the fruits, and all the research really backs it up. So moving on, what I'd like again Sushant to share with us is some of the key pillars that are now underpinning the battleground. I'm sure some of you may have come across the article this week where SAP bought Qualtrics for about $8 billion. And if you read the press releases, the CEO makes a big deal about saying it was all about customer experience. That's where the focus is. That's where the focus needs to be, and hence, the justification for the investment and that partnership. So, Sushant, maybe expand upon your personal experiences on these pillars for us.
I think with more and more clients we are collaborating with in their digital transformation and the customer experience journeys, we're seeing that social is coming up as a very strong channel when it comes about expressing the consumers their positive and negative opinions. Okay, consumers are more vocal these days. They're expressing themselves both actively and passively across different channels. And it's very, very important for all the large enterprises to start leveraging this multiple social footprints of the consumers and start leveraging it as a part of the digital customer experience journey. Number two is the number of channels through which the consumers are interacting with you are increasing day by day. That era is gone where the consumers are interacting with you through traditional channels like search engines and emails. We are seeing consumers are more active on forums, on social platforms. They're interacting with your brick and mortar stores. They're interacting with you through web chats, through voice assistants, through call centers. And all these channels are providing us a plethora of valuable information that needs to be mined. And the most important thing which has happened recently is after the arrival of the GDPR guidelines, things have become too strict. Consumers are becoming too paranoid about what needs to be shared, what not needs to be shared. And as a part of the whole digital customer experience journey, at Course5, we take special precautions when we're dealing with this sensitive PII data, that how to protect the data integrity and quality, how to maintain the database level securities, the row level securities, and make sure whatever data is sitting on the cloud, how we protect it. And the fourth piece is the proliferation of data. We are, as I mentioned earlier also, we are seeing more and more data sources coming in, the streaming data, the batch data. We are seeing data coming from your offline enterprise data warehouses. So it's very important that how you factor in all these in-stream, outstream, batch data and leverage it as a part of your customer experience journey.
Thank you, Sushant. Moving on and keeping the pace. So how does that translate into opportunities for the enterprise? As hopefully you gathered, we love data, we're passionate about the topic of analytics and insights. And so we'd like to bring your attention to some of these key measures, key KPIs that have evolved over the last few years. Ironically, I was on a webinar earlier this week with a chap who was the inventor of the NPS promoter score. I was just listening to the webinar, I wasn't participating, but a lot of good history in this area. So one observation we have, and there's some research recently conducted by Forrester that explains quite clearly there is a correlation between investing in CX and then which industry you're investing in. And in some industries, the correlation is the expected one, so it's a straight line. The more you invest, the more you get back, such as retail. But other industries like wireless and telco, it actually plateaus. So it's worth understanding that if you are in a given industry, will more investment in customer experience give you more return? And so maybe, Sushant, you can just pick one of these today and just explain to us how these have evolved. I mean, I can see that you can measure the same KPI, but now at different levels of the organization. And that was not the case 5-10 years ago. So things are moving really fast.
So one thing I would like to call it out here, that all these customer satisfaction measures that we are seeing, they're not new. They have been in the industry for a while. I've been seeing this across all my clients for the last 18 years. And there's always a constant challenge about how to measure it effectively. And even if we are measuring it, how to translate it back into actionable. And how to have a closed feedback loop where you are seeing the changes in these measures over a period of time and further going back to your decision makers and make them accept those changes and make them take the right decisions. For me, the most famous metric here is the customer effort score. I feel that's like an underdog in the industry right now. We have been talking a lot about NPS, we have been talking a lot about CSAT. I'm missing this very, very critical metric, which is effort score, which influences the customer loyalty significantly. And I have plenty of examples that I've experienced in the last few years. And due to the shortage of time, we won't be able to go deeper into each and every example, but I'll walk you through in one of the case study in the following slide. So we've been working with this a mid-sized telecom player in the European region for the last 3 years. When we started a relationship with them in 2016, the major focus area for them was that how we can collaborate with them in reducing their operational costs, which means cutting down the dependencies on the IVRs and the call center reps. And also help them deliver seamless experience across 14 different channels. And as we started a relationship with them, at Course5, we have our standard maturity assessment. So anytime we start our DCX journey, we evaluate each and every enterprise customer on these 9 and 10 different business areas, evaluating them in terms of their current customer penetration, the kind of investment they have done in the tools and technologies, kind of CX leadership they have put in place. And based on that comprehensive assessment, we give them a certain rating. And as you can see, this organization got a rating of 68%. Okay. Now, apart from that, the more important thing is benchmarking. Where do they stand right now? So at the beginning of our relation with them, we looked at their 6 core segments. And against these segments, the kind of a customer acquisition cost that they were incurring, the kind of lifetime value that they had, and the kind of a churn. And apart from that, we also benchmark the kind of a cost that they were incurring when the consumers were interacting with them through the IVR and call centers. And over a period of 2 years, we did series of optimization programs with this customer, and we helped them in multiple areas: optimization of their processes, optimization of their call center scripts, optimization of their technology infrastructure, streamlining the whole operational workflows. And after going through this last 2 years of painful journey, this is the kind of statistics we recorded in the month of March this year. And as you can see at the bottom of your screen, we brought the cost of operations significantly down, and that really impacted their bottom line.
Thank you, Sushant. So in summary there, we have an example of a telco. It just happens to be telco in this case. 2-year program, started off with some ambitions around the customer experience framework. And as you would expect, if you are going to make some significant changes, you have to sort of take a couple of steps back, look at the operations, look at the data. So the takeaway is that it can be done. It is being done by many clients, by many suppliers, and it's just one example of the effort required to do that. So let's move on to a contrast, and hence the main theme of today, which is simulations and advanced analytics. So as I mentioned earlier, we have a team that is focused on this at Course5. They work on several different things, and you can see that at the bottom of your screen. Maybe I can kick off here with Sushant and ask you about, how has this evolved at Course5? So what sort of things have we been tasked and challenged by clients? And generally, keeping it within customer experience, where's it heading? What sort of things do you think we're going to be building in the next few years?
One fundamental thing that we've noticed across all our customers is that still they were following the old school dashboards and scorecards. Okay, they've been looking at the same metrics week over week, month over month, but nothing is actionable. So we made an attempt 18 months ago where we decided that we need to make this data actionable. So we, along with our data science team under the leadership of Zabi, who's also on the call, we built series of simulations, okay, where we took all the data coming from the call center systems, the web chat systems, your primary and quantitative service data, your qualitative service data, and we built these regression models. Now the question came, okay, you build this regression model, so what do we do? Okay, so the models are telling us that what's impacting my satisfaction rate, but we want to make it very interactive. The customers want something very transparent, something visible, something that they can play with, interact with. And that's where we made a significant progress in the last 18 months, built multiple simulators for different industries, for FMCG, for utilities, for telecom. And as we will go further, I'll ask my colleague Zabi to give a sneak preview to what that simulator is all about.
Sure. Thanks, Sushant. So I think one of the primary purpose of building simulator is really to, how we can provide an access to the, the person who is the lowest in the organizational hierarchy, somebody who faces customers. How can they influence customer experience? So they can use this tool and they can create their own scenarios and create an impact on customer experience. So one of the things that we do before we even build these simulators are, so we build a proper causal models, identify what are the key dimensions which are influencing customer experience and how that influencing. So we built a graphical model which not only explains what are the key things which is impacting customer experience and how it has been impacting it. So these graphical models allow us to create various different scenarios. So we will be able to answer questions such as what would be the best scenario in which we can achieve significant customer experience. And on contrary, we can also look at what is the worst case scenario which we can avoid. So many times when we discuss these insights with our customers, so one of the common questions that they typically ask is, okay, look, we are planning certain types of campaigns over a period of time. And we believe that these campaigns will help improve certain perception areas, but not everything. So can you tell us that how those campaigns will impact customer experience? How much that impact would be? So using these kind of graphical models, so we will be able to navigate these graphical models and come up with the estimation of what would be the customer experience looks like once those campaigns executes. And then when the campaign is actually executed, we'll be able to monitor the effect of that and then identify, okay, is there any gap between what we have estimated and what is actually observed, and we can build rationales around it. So one other thing that we can easily do with these kind of simulators, these kind of models, we can create these simulators which are very intuitive, even to the end user in the organization. So using which they can create their own scenarios, very influencing those specific attributes which are very relevant to them. So say, for example, using these tools, they can make some changes on some of the influencing variables, and then they can see the impact of that on the customer experience. So for example, if we improve the price fairness perception among customers by certain points, and what will be the impact of that on the overall customer experience. So you might have noticed, so when I'm making a change on the price fairness, there is also a change observed on certain things like, say, customer focus. So basically what it means is when you improve the perception of price, it not only influences the end goal, but it also improves the perception about customer focus and a lot of the other metrics which are really related. So that is something that you can see in this kind of a network map as well. Now, so what one can do is, so they can look at the cumulative effect of a particular attribute on the customer experience, which is in this case is about 0.4. They can also look at the individual effect, such as I can freeze some of these variables. I can refresh this, I can reset this, I can freeze this. So which basically means that I want to understand the individual contribution of price, so which is this. So using things like this, one can create various different scenarios and learn more about how one can influence within their own domain. So,
sorry to interrupt you here, Zavid. Just wanted to add a couple of more points to bring some more context here. So the data behind this simulator is coming from 4 major data sources. We are taking data from the telephonic surveys. The data has come from the call center interactions where the customers, when they were talking to this utility client, they were interacting with the reps. Plus, the data is also coming from the meter readings. So there are multiple sources which have been considered while building this kind of a simulation. And who is the target audience here? So the target audience here is the 3 main groups at the client organization. It's your customer-facing group, your call center department, the head of your call center operations. The target audience is your marketing team, who wants to understand that what are the factors which are influencing the customer satisfaction score, so that they can proactively decide what type of marketing campaigns they should be running to re-engage with these customers. And the third piece is your operations team, who needs to understand when do we need to send a truck roll? When do we need to proactively reinitiate the relationship with the customer so that we can maintain the loyalty with them? Now, these kind of simulators are not just the end. They are just one step to help you understand what are the key drivers. But in order for you to close the feedback loop, at Course5, we have a strong consulting layer. People like Zabi, people who are coming from our teams, they collaborate, and we take this data output, go back to the different decision makers, translate that into a language that they understand, and make them take the proper proactive actions. Over to you, Zabi.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Sushant. So as Sushant mentioned, some of the insights specifically with this client are able to make from the simulator is, every year they conduct various different campaigns related to community focus, right? So where they do this, various different activities like putting up trees. This is a utility space that we are talking about, putting up more trees. And they wanted to understand how something like this, how would that impact the customer experience, right? So we brought in that variable. And then we are able to help them understand, look, any improvement that you do on customer focus, so it does impact on the customer experience, but primarily it improves the perception of customer focus, because customer focus being the most important driver for this particular client. So they were identifying the means or the ways in which they can improve customer focus, because that being the primary driver. So this simulator has helped them understand even the activities such as community focus, even the level of communication that they need to keep with their customers, even metrics, simple metrics such as this, how it will help them achieve the larger customer experience goal.
Thanks, Abhi.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So in summary of the last slide and the presentation of the simulation, sorry, we're just trying to get, we're just trying to get to the right slide. In summary, we're predominantly looking at historical data. We're building some very advanced relationships to then, instead of spending 1 to 2 years engineering the data and potentially changing processes, to try and home in on where the biggest impact could be. And that's what these simulators are about. So my natural question to Zabi, and I know the answer, so I'm just going to cut straight to the answer myself, is when should you use such simulators, right? Some people use them before they start such elaborate CX programs. Some of them actually use them during their elaborate CX programs just to validate some of the key moving parts. In the example cited here, there's about 12 variables. I think there's maybe 12, 13 variables. Zabi and his team have done a few of these, so they can advise on the right mix, what is workable, what is practical, and then, within the time frame of 6 to 9 weeks, I think. Zabi, correct me if I'm wrong, is a sort of time frame required to begin to show some fruits from these models. Zabi?
Yeah, that's right. I think it also depends on how ready the data is within an organization. So sometimes when we work with certain clients, we have to collate and ingest data from various different sources, prepare them, make them suitable for the analysis and the model building. In those cases, the time duration would be slightly higher, whereas in most of the cases, it is around 6 to 8 weeks.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. So in summary, we strongly believe, and as the external data from markets validate. There's a big push in this area. I mean, there isn't a place that we turn around to and it's not brought up as a question or an important topic. If there is one thing we'd like to leave you is the causality between investing in this area and, as you will see at the bottom of your screen, the multiples that will bring in when it comes to repurchase, loyalty, and trying new offerings. So it's worth investing in learning about more about this, and obviously, pursuing further, but certainly learning about the potential and the upside that a lot of clients are looking for. We said we would leave you with some recommendations. In short, we try not to bombard people with too many things. We thank you for all your time today. But in short, none of these programs, even the simulator programs, can happen without senior management. And ironically, it is the senior management that benefit the most, because from the short recommendations that Zabi and his team can deliver, they can understand direction, they can understand where to focus, and maybe get away from areas where they're trying to focus and have not delivered value over several years. The data we talked about, we refer to it in Course5 as a company habit. It's very important to think of it as a good habit, collecting data